Crystal Tower information, Whiskey 21530 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, this is departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling Nancy 53 on Oak Tower, Roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143, flying 5, runway 280 left, quick takeoff, left hand southbound.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure, have your flight.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jim, and I'm joined by my fabulous co-hosts, Maddie.
Hello.
And the one and only Badger Pilot.
Good evening.
What if they're listening to this in the morning?
Yeah, some people do listen in the morning. I don't think it's that big of a deal. They get greetings and salutations. There. Now it is time of day neutral.
No, if somebody's starting their day listening to us, then they're
Starting off great.
yeah.
What a way to start your day.
I was gonna say if they're listening us to the evening, it's so they can get ready for bed.
That's only when Maddie reads advisory circulars.
Oh, yeah, I have to do that. I forgot.
So what do you two got going on? We've put out a couple episodes in the last few weeks, so we have talked.
I'm trying to remember what I last. I have nothing going on. I flew today. That was exciting.
All right, you flew today.
I did. That's exciting.
It is exciting. I didn't mean to sound I was just cueing you back to start over.
It's been so cold here. The reason that's a big thing is because it's been so cold and so windy, or the clouds have been low. It has just been yucky, like Minnesota kind of yucky lately. And it's been really poor weather for flying. And school rules, we can't fly when it's 20 below, not 20 below, I'm sorry, below 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
No, 20. You got it right. 20 degrees below zero. You got it right.
That is not. No, I did not. Who wants to be flying in that? Not me.
You didn't say -20.
-20. So if it's not warmer than 20 degrees, we do not get to fly. So today it was both above 20 degrees and not too windy, so we got to go fly. Tomorrow I will not. Tomorrow I will be snowed in. This is being recorded on Monday the 17th, so Tuesday snowstorm for Maddie. Very exciting.
Yeah, it was like -6 here today, so
Gross.
Gross. Weather sucks.
Yeah,
Weather does
despite
suck.
my puffing my chest out in our last episode about how I'll fly no matter how cold it is. I woke up this morning. True. I did not fly. It was too cold. Not worth it.
I get it.
Yep.
Extreme cold warning. Yeah, I'd constitute that. Oh, you guys will get to -4 tomorrow.
Really excited about that.
Might even get to 4 below.
You might even get to 0.
He's going on and on again about whether it's supposed to be said as negative this or this below. But I don't think the listeners heard that before we started. So I think that they
didn't.
This is apparently a big deal to him.
I doubt they care. Sorry, Badger.
I also don't care.
I'm sure they don't. But if it gives me an excuse to yell and swear at my local weatherman who I do not like, then I'm going to do it. And that's how this all started.
Do you? Jeez.
This screams of old man yells at clouds.
What did he do to me? He told me about a meteor shower. Yeah, I'm literally yelling at the sky right now. He told me about a meteor shower that if I go outside at a certain time and it's going to be clear out, I'll see the meteors. And guess what? It wasn't clear. I saw no meteor shower. This meteorologist is useless to me. I will forever watch a different newscast, although they've fired my favorite meteorologist recently. So now I don't know what to do for my weather anymore. There, end of rant. We're done.
Hey, I think Meteor AF.
Meteor AF. Yes, there you go.
I do use it from time to time. It's faster than pulling up Garmin Pilot on my phone, so I definitely use it frequently.
And it's way more entertaining.
It is.
What about you, Jim? What's going on with you?
Well, what's going on with me is I got a really cool opportunity to interview someone from another really popular aviation podcast over on Fly the Transition. So I interviewed Romeo Hotel from Opposing Bases, which It's one of my favorite aviation podcasts that I'm not on. Right up there with the guys over Midlife Pilot. I mean, those are kind of like my core group of aviation podcasts that I listen to. Anyways, RH was a super awesome guy, great guest, and he was just talking about his different career transitions as he's been a Renaissance man through aviation over his career. So between regionals to air traffic control and now off to the majors. So it was a really cool conversation. So if you haven't heard it, go out and check that episode out where I chat with Romeo Hotel on Fly the Transition.
That's super cool.
I've also been working on some CFI groundwork. I've been taking some practice tests for the last written. I need to keep practicing the practice tests for the last written. I'm not at a point where I'm ready to take that test yet, but
which one?
I'll keep working through the material. So I did fundamentals of instruction. I got to do the other one.
FIA.
Yeah, that's it.
Flight instructor airplane.
Thank you. I do have to do that one still. So, I mean, it's not like I get terrible scores, but to be able to be prepared to go in and take an FAA written and not have to worry about all of the subject areas that'll pop up on the exam for me to have to go then through with the examiner. The fewer of those that will pop up, the better. So,
100%.
And our plane is done for an engine overhaul officially now. So, the cowl is off. Parts are coming off. It's happening. So,
boy,
yeah.
I just wanted to let you all know it's been very cold everywhere, but especially in Minnesota. And
I live
today's METAR-AF reading for Flying Cloud, because Anoka's was boring, is negative 22 degrees Celsius. You are never getting your engine started, and that's probably for the best.
100%.
It was about 25 above zero today, and we still couldn't get our engine started. So as you may have heard if you listened to the end of the episode in the last couple of episodes, that we are designing some new merch. If you have any ideas for said new merch, anything you would want on a t-shirt, hat, hoodie, whatever, please let us know. I am in the middle of designing a couple of things that I'm pretty excited about. I'm no great artist, but we're trying. So, yeah. If you have merch ideas, please let us know, because we're going to have a little bit of a new release here, hopefully for the new airshow season.
Yep. Or if you want to take a play on something stupid that we've said or done over the years.
That would be something I would want on a t-shirt, so that is included.
Yep. I almost bought a shirt from Sporty's today that said, "Got him on the fish finder."
Oh, that's good. I heard somebody say that in real life the other day. I couldn't believe it.
All right. Well, should we get into some news and events?
Probably should.
All right. Hit it.
All right. I'll start it off in St. Louis, where the St. Louis Downtown Airport identifier Charlie Papa Sierra has grown in its operations to a new level. And in early 2024, the FAA notified them that they now meet the standard to be recognized as National General Aviation Airport. Something I didn't even know that existed, and it makes me wonder what all goes into that. But I'd be willing to bet I'll be able to tell you in just a second. In fact, the next sentence, the designation is derived from a National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, the NPIAS, and it identifies existing and proposed airports that are considered significant to the national air transportation system, and it makes it eligible for more federal funds. So with these funds, the airport plans to add some improvement projects to the airport, as well as help harbor an environment of breeding the next generation of aviators. And they'll be partnering with St. Louis University's Parks Department of Aviation Science and hold the annual Aviation Summer Academy, where more than 20 high school seniors from across 8 different states are introduced to the world of aviation and the exciting careers within it. They also do things like hosting the annual Girls in Aviation Day event, where they encouraged about 130 young women from more than a dozen high schools in the area to explore careers in aviation. Last year, downtown St. Louis Airport saw flight operations increase to a total of 119,173 total ops during the fiscal year, which ended in June 30th of 2024. It's showing a continuous positive trend in the year-to-year growth, and operations reported for the fiscal year of 2024 represented a 17% increase since 2022, marking the third consecutive year of post-pandemic growth. So congratulations to the St. Louis Downtown Airport for being recognized with that designation.
Okay, so this is groundbreaking. Maddie's actually talking about Ohio for once in a positive light. Sorry to all Ohioans. Next year, America will be celebrating its 250th birthday. Very exciting for a country. So Ohio, in preparation, the entire state is getting ready for this very great event. So in their preparations, they are making 6 trails around the state. So there are several different kinds. The one we're going to be talking about is the Ohio Air and Space Trail. So this is an array of more than 30 places that are integral to the aviation history of the state. And this was officially inaugurated at the Waco Air Museum in Troy, Ohio. So there are 2 so far. 4 are planned for the rest of 2025 and 2026, which is pretty cool. So this is to help tell the story of Ohio and its contributions to different industries and things around the United States and around the world. So these trails have places that are open around the state on a regular basis with interpreters or historians on site, who can tell people about these areas of national interest. So this is part of the Trail and Tales initiative, which is, again, telling these stories, which is, I think, really cool. So there are a lot of places, obviously more than 30 on this list if you want to start going and looking at all of these things in Ohio. The National Museum of the U.S. Air Force is a big destination. The National Aviation Hall of Fame, the Huffman Prairie Flying Field Interpretive Center, and the Wright Brothers National Museum, and plenty more are on this list. Yeah, so if you're interested, this is active. So definitely go search this up if you're in Ohio or you want to go poke around Ohio a little bit. There are a lot of places, including these museums, that you can go visit and see what Ohio has to offer in the air and space industry.
So our final item here is a mix of news and an event. On Saturday, April 12th of 2025, the Minnesota Aviation Hall of Fame will be inducting several new members to the hall. That event is going to take place in Prior Lake at Mystic Lake Center, the Minnetonka Ballroom. That's going to be 4:45 p.m. and dinner's at 6. Following dinner will be the induction ceremony. So some of the names that we can expect to see being inducted this year: Mark Baker, former president of AOPA; Robert Cabana, who is a Minnesota native, who is a naval aviator, as well as selected to be an astronaut, and flew 4 shuttle missions before being assigned to the NASA offices. Randy Korfman, who is the president of the Minnesota Pilots Association. James Goodall, who spent 10 years active duty in the Air Force and helped start the Minnesota Air Guard Museum, restoring a number of different aircraft. Clarence Kratz, who came to Minnesota after serving in the Army Air Corps in World War II and did a lot in northern Minnesota, around the Grand Marais area, in serving as their airport commissioner, among other things in that area. Nick Mamer, who was a Army World War I pilot and is credited with downing 3 German aircraft. Finally, Navy Commander Amanda Lee, who was the first female to fly on the Blue Angels team. So congratulations to all the inductees. If you're looking for more information about that event, it's mahof.org.
Tickets are $95.
Thank you.
No problem. I
That'd be a cool event. All right, I think that's it for our news and events.
I want to get Amanda Lee on the podcast. I wonder if she'd do it.
I do too. I was 100% looking for her contact information today, and I couldn't find it.
Darn.
Well, with news and events out of the way, we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of this episode, which is going to be a fantastic interview that we had with the one and only Rob Reider, who Badger is going to tell us all about in just a moment. But this was a really fun interview, and once again, Rob has proven that the man that you hear is just as genuine in person as he is with all of his announcing and training videos and things like that. So without further ado, Rob Reider.
Well, we are thrilled to welcome back to the Flying Midwest podcast the one and only Rob Reider. He's a familiar host and narrator of many of the Sporty's training programs, and he was the soundtrack to my both private and instrument ground schools. He's a legendary airshow announcer and host of the I Learned About Flying From That podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, Rob Reider.
Thank you, Badger. Thank you, Maddie, and thank you, Jim. It's fun to be back, and gosh, I hear all those things. I'm glad I helped you learn to fly, man. You're in good shape, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
We did have him on one episode where he held up a piece of paper that was basically in Sharpie and goes, "Oh, for Rob Reider, I've got my Sporty's Learn to Fly certificate here." I'm like, it's an audio podcast, but for an audio podcast and everybody listening, you're holding up a sheet of paper written in Sharpie. But
it was representative.
The other one was, I've had others show me ones written in crayon, so what the heck?
There you go.
That might have been more appropriate for Badger, but... well, you may remember this from the last time you were on, but we're going to dive into our quick response Fast 5 questions.
All right.
If you're up for it.
Sure, hit it.
All right. Question number 1 for you. Favorite aviation film?
It's either Strategic Air Command or the original Flight of the Phoenix.
I just watched Strategic Air Command last night.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Pretty cool.
I put out a video about Jimmy Stewart's last combat mission. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch Strategic Air Command again. So, good film.
One of the things that I never got to hear in my life was the sound of a B-36.
That's such an interesting aircraft, too, with the 6 props and the jet engines accompanying it. It's interesting.
Yeah, they used to say 6 turning and 4 burning.
Yeah.
And that came... I first heard that term from the longtime boss in the original days of the Dayton Air Show, the longtime boss, Air Boss, Claire Potter, like Colonel Claire Potter, who flew not only the B-36, but he was a P-47 pilot. He was a prisoner of war in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And he also flew the one and only XC-99.
That's quite a lot of accomplishment up there.
Yeah, he's quite a guy.
Wow. Well, on to question number 2. Favorite aircraft?
Mine.
Yours. Great answer. Love it.
That's the best answer.
Actually, an RV, right?
RV-7A.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's all loaded with Garmin glass, so it does what it's supposed to do. And my wife and I own it. She's got a private ticket, but she's not exercised it much. But if I'm at an air show and we've got a long trip back and we want to try to get back Sunday night, if she's with me, I will fly more than 2 hours after a full day air show. Otherwise, I stay the night.
Question number 3. Favorite aviation film character?
Oh my gosh, Sky King. Kirby Grant. I got to meet him.
Okay.
When I was doing television.
Wow.
I did. I got to meet him, and it was in the early 80s, and it was after I had my flight with the Thunderbirds in August of 1980, and we had initially shown that segment, and when he was on the show that day, we showed it again, and found out that he was a very talented singer. He sang a song called They Call the Wind Mariah from the Broadway musical Paint Your Wagon. And he sang it great. Nice baritone voice.
Interesting.
Wow.
All right, question number 4. What is the ugliest aircraft you've seen?
There's a tri-motor of some sort that approaches ugliness. But it's not the Ford. I think there was some sort of an American-built tri-motor at one point, and I don't remember what it was, but that was pretty ugly. And I hate to say this, the Skycam ain't pretty.
I'm not familiar with that one. I feel like I'm going to have to Google.
It's designed open cockpit kind of thing for photography for low, slow flight. Not pretty, but a very functional and good airplane.
I'm going to have to look for that one. All right. Normally, we've asked you this question before, so I had to change it up. Our last question is normally, if you could meet anyone in aviation dead or alive, but since we covered that, who would you say is the most inspirational person that you've met in aviation?
John Glenn.
Oh, that would be great to meet.
Yep. I got to meet him when I was doing television as well. Yeah. He'd be the guy.
Great answers.
Thank you. I'm glad I had some. I didn't have to hunt too much.
I wasn't worried that you'd come up with some answers. Well, thanks for playing along with our Fast 5 questions. I'm going to let Maddie take us into the interview.
All right. Well, Rob, congratulations on the completion of your last season in airshow announcing.
Thank you.
So you've had a really impressive career, so this must be kind of bittersweet for you, huh?
In a way, yes, but it was something that I have been working on actually since 2019. I thought at some point I'm going to be it's going to not be what I want to do, and I'm just going to get old, and I don't want to find myself losing work because I'm getting too old and people don't like my work anymore. And so I decided to start working on another career. And I was actually, Maddie, encouraged by my almost 50-year-old oldest son. And Robbie said to me one day years ago, Dad, you've reinvented yourself 3 times. I thought, wow, well, maybe I could do it again. Because I've got the studio that I've been using for Sporties for a long time. I do occasional other work. And so in late 2019, I started working on building a voiceover business, and which has led into audiobooks. We can talk about that later if you want. But I am very, very pleased with how things have gone. And I am still, people say, do you miss it? I don't know yet, because I am still in post-season freedom. But in about 2 weeks, well, there's already been an air show, a couple of them, one in Laredo, Texas, and the Ilopango air show down in El Salvador. And in 4 weeks, the air show that I would generally start my season with will take place, and that's Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, and I will not be there for that. And that's, we'll see how I miss it. You guys know Matt Chapman, I think, don't you? Used to fly for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, flew a cap with extra wings on it, a Cap 232 with extra wings. And he's kind of my retirement coach. He's been kind of walking me through this. And Memorial Day, I was stuck in New York after the Jones Beach show on Long Island an extra day because the weather was just crappy coming back and I wasn't going to poke my head into it. So I was sitting in the hotel room Monday night, and Matt Chapman called me up and said, and I think I've got this quoted, "Are you still sure about the decision you've made?" And I said, "Yes, I'm sure." Because it's time. I'm 76. It's just time.
Wow.
Could have fooled me.
Thank you. But bittersweet, well, I'll let you know. He says I'm going to miss it the first year.
I'd imagine so.
So if you don't mind, and so for those who aren't familiar with your story, could you tell us just a brief overview? I know you have a lot to condense, but could you tell us a little bit about your start in aviation and how you got into airshow announcing?
Yeah, it's kind of circuitous, but it starts with my dad having soloed after World War II, but not being able to get a private license because he was colorblind. But he and I shared aviation, built models and stuff like that. But I also had a lot of music in the family. And I wound up being involved in music in high school and in college, and wound up singing on television in Cincinnati and the Midwest on a talk variety show called The Bob Braun Show from 1970 to 1983. And I sang everything on that show, from John Denver to show tunes to Earth, Wind, and Fire. We did everything. And there are people, you can find me on YouTube with a lot more hair and a lot darker. So, but some of the best stuff that I got to do on TV is still on YouTube, and I'm grateful for that.
Cool.
But when I was on the Braun Show in 1980, I got an opportunity to fly with the Thunderbirds in the back seat of a T-38. with their guy on a trip from Rome, New York, down to Youngstown, Ohio. Got sick after I got out of the jet, but I still loved it. And I told my wife at the time, I said, I need to get a private pilot's license. So I did. And then I started volunteering at the Dayton show. Actually, I started volunteering at the Dayton show in 1979 as a ham radio communicator. And I started getting a little mic time there with Bill Bordelot. Long story short, they kind of made me the color announcer and encouraged me. I joined ICAS in 1995, started exhibiting shortly thereafter with a booth and kind of saying, "Hey, pick me, pick me." It was like in the movie Shrek with the donkey, Eddie Murphy, jumping up and down. But anyway, things caught on, and the one of the interesting things that happened was, as time went on, John Cudahy, the president of ICAS, in 1999, asked me if I would MC the banquet at Opryland when we had it there one year. And that was my first exposure, but it was this incredible boost for me that the organization would put me on stage in front of all those people. And then Sean D. Tucker, after the first Jones Beach show in New York on Long Island, the original New York Air Show, he recommended me because whoever the other announcer was the previous year wasn't any good. So, and he also mentioned me to the folks out in Salinas, Harry Wardwell. And so Sean D. Tucker and Bill Bordelot, who gave me mic time first, he was ICAS member number 4. Bill and Sean and John Cudahy were hugely responsible in my establishing myself as a career air show announcer. And I went full-time at it in 2006, and the rest, as they say, is history.
I don't know. For me, I have a hard time imagining the air show seasons without you in the mix there somewhere.
Oh, you're nice. Thanks.
But after so many years in the business, I think we touched a little bit on this, but how did you know it was the right time to put the mic down?
I had watched several other announcers sort of over the curve and went downhill. And I said, I'm not going to do that. If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out as close to on top as I can. And Johnny Carson was my model for that. When I forget what year he retired, but he had been up on top in the late night TV for 30 years. And I think the ratings were just starting to go down. And after 30 years, he thought it was right to pull the plug. And I thought, if I go out like that, I'm going to go out with my head held high. And maybe after a few years, some people will still remember me, because people forget. There's so much turnover in the air show business.
Oh, sure.
People will forget or not know you. I got to tell you, the last year, it was December of 2023 was my last year exhibiting, and I had a big banner in my booth, and I wasn't looking for a fancy location or because I didn't need to book any business. And I was back out of the way kind of, and it says, "Thanks for the memories, Rob Reider, farewell tour 2024." And me doing a mic drop with a gold Shure microphone out of my airplane, right? And a guy walked by who I didn't recognize, and he kind of looked at me and looked up at the banner, looked up at me, and turned and walked away. I thought, already nobody knows who I am. Rob who?
Oh, grief.
It was funny. It was very funny.
Maybe he was just floored and didn't know what. Like, I don't know what to think about this.
He was a newbie. He was probably totally new to the ICAS convention and was walking around and had, who is this guy doing a mic drop with a gold microphone? So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So it was time. I thought, I'm going to get out while the getting's good. Well, I still have a voice. I still am getting work. And I'm here. I spent most of my day in the booth recording an audiobook today.
Knowing that you're going to get out while the getting's good, as you said, I imagine you were able to piece together your own farewell tour. Were you able to be selective on your final season and what air shows you decided to do? Did you cram as much in as you could? Was there anything that you said, I have to be at this show if nothing else?
Oh, Badger, that's a great question. I had told my wife, Jill, that I want to do 10 shows at the final, just 10 shows. And those shows booked up, and other friends wanted me, and Jill wavered me to 12. And then Herb Gillen asked if I would do the Columbus show. And I've known Herb a long time, another friend in the business. And I asked, and it was a week before Dayton. So I talked to the folks at Dayton. I said, would you guys mind if I did Columbus? No, let's go ahead. And I talked to Jill. I said, what do you think? It's 90 minutes from my house. I can drive. I'll be home Sunday night. What do you think? And she said, yeah. So 13 shows, and I was happy and thrilled to be at every one of them because every one of the organizers was a friend of mine.
That is very cool.
I'll follow up just a little bit. Is there one show that you couldn't do that you would have liked to, or maybe asked a different way? If there's one show that could pull you out of retirement just for one event, could you put your finger on that?
Oh, my. For many years, I wanted to do Nellis with the Thunderbirds, but I wound up doing Pensacola with the Blues, and that became my show for some of these shows. A couple of these shows I did for nearly 20 years. Jones Beach was one of those shows at New York. But Pensacola became my end-of-season show. Nellis, maybe, but here's what I did, Badger. I purposely painted myself into a corner by saying no to everybody for 2025. Because, and now, if I were to say yes to one of my good friends in the business and didn't say yes to others, that would really be kind of nasty.
Sure.
So it would have engendered some negative feelings, I think. Well, you do his show, but you won't do mine. I'm not going to do that. People say the airshow business is a family business. And in some respects, it's really family. Because with the airshow business, aviators are putting their lives on the line every time they go up in an airplane. And as I look over on my wall, I look at the Hoover film, Flying the Feathered Edge. It's a poster for that movie. Those folks are doing that. And I think because people are pushing the envelopes with their skills and with their aircraft, that people get closer quicker because they understand. They understand how fragile it all is. And when you've lost as many friends as I have, and other folks that I know who have lost more friends than I have. I mean, I've watched 7 people die. The family thing is pretty significant. So I'm not gonna strain that family thing. I still text folks and speak with them every once in a while. I talk to announcer Matt Jolly, twice a week. And then Rick Peterson and Matt, and now Stephanie Strickland and I do the Show Center, the Air Show podcast thing that we do. And as time goes on and I'm not so close to the business, I'm going to fade. I'm ready for that. I've got a good thing going here with the audiobooks. Still have 4 books in the queue ahead that I'm looking at. One hopefully will be coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks. It's in the author's hands for review right now, and it's part of an aviation series. Colin Pierce is the protagonist in all of them. He's the central character, and there's a 6-book series that I'm doing for the author Christopher Broyle, who is a former F-16, A-10, and OV-10 pilot. He's an Air Force Academy grad, has a PhD from Embry-Riddle. He is now a consultant for NBAA and crew retention and crew pay and compensation, things like that. And pretty good novelist. And I just finished, and he's got in his hands now for review, actually book 1 in the series, although 3 are already out, called The Viper Contract. You know, it's neat that I can talk the aviation language when I narrate a book like that. So that's helpful for me. So I think I've probably gone on way too long, Badger, on that. But
No,
not
at all.
I would come out of retirement in case one of my friends got sick and they needed somebody real quick. And I may do announcing for an act occasionally. I am working on recorded narration, as I have for the last 15 years or so with Michael Goulian. I talked to him this morning as of this recording, and he and one of his guys are coming out to Cincinnati, and we're going to sit here in my studio, and we're going to put together a new music track for him and new announce track for him.
That'll be neat.
Yeah. And then also doing the same thing for Redline. Ken Reeder and his son Austin, because they're in town here. We've already done one full day together, putting together new music for their show. And anyway, staying busy, and not totally out of aviation, obviously. Not with I Laughed and
right,
Sporties and just hanging around and being the old has been.
Just hanging around.
Yeah.
I happen to know that your season ended with the Blues and the Thunderbirds in Pensacola, which doesn't happen very often. That at the end of the season, those guys are together.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened. Not at the end of season.
Wow.
Okay.
And it just couldn't have been better for me because I had all my friends on both teams.
Yeah.
I coached both narrators, and just so fun that I got to be there with my favorite teams ever. Only folks who weren't there were the Golden Knights, and that would have been nice too.
Oh, sure.
I've coached there. I'm an honorary Golden Knight. The Thunderbirds have patched me, although I'm not an honorary, but they did give me the patch, and I can wear that. And then the Blues made me an honorary back in 2010.
Sure.
And gave me a call sign.
They give you a call sign?
Yeah. 8.5.
8.5. Okay.
Do we have time for the story?
Oh, absolutely. I think we don't have time.
We have time for every story.
In 2010, at Jones Beach, Amy Tomlinson, Blue Angel number 8, did not get to the rehearsal show because of a mix-up with a police escort getting her from the hotel out to the beach. So I put on my scanner and my headphones and plugged in the scanner so I could listen to the radio transmissions, and told number 7 what was coming. I played the role of number 8, and afterwards they joked, "No, you're not 8, you're 8.5." Sunday, in my blue flight suit and my replica Blue Angel crest and my scanner and a scanner and headphones, I had scanner 8.5 Sharpied on a piece of paper around it, introduced the Blue Angels, and got in between 7 and 8 and mugged it to the camera. Well, that was just a joke. Well, they made me an honorary at Miramar that year.
Oh, cool.
In 2010. And the next day, Amy Tomlinson came out to Show Center with a helmet bag, a Blue Angels crest, my name, and 8.5 on it.
How cool is that?
That's awesome.
I hadn't heard that story before.
That's how that happened.
So that must have made this last show then really special to be able to have those two teams together.
It was. It was the best. I've gotten to know so many of the members from the team that end of season is a huge reunion, not only for the Blue Angels, but for me and the Blues.
Sure.
Go way back for those folks. So it's just a joy.
So we heard that they showered you with affection at the end of that last show.
Yeah.
So how did you feel in those closing moments?
Well, it's one thing that was on my bucket list. I was hoping that I would get doused as a Feeney flight. I really did want to get hosed down. And Wayne Boggs, who is also an honorary Blue Angel, the recent honorary Blue Angels are me, Michael Goulian, Rob Holland, and Wayne Boggs, and a couple other people. But in terms of air show people, just the four of us. Michael was there. Wayne was there. But whenever I'm at a show with Wayne, with the Blues or the Thunderbirds, when the team taxis out, we go out from our position on the stand and go out right as close as we can to the taxiway to salute and wave and give our bows to the team as they taxi by. So we're out there. Goulian's out there. Rob Holland's out there. Wayne's out there. I'm out there. We're waving at the team, and out of nowhere, a bunch of buckets of water just get doused all over my back as the team is going by. So it was great. So it was something that I could not have thought was anything better. I really had hoped it would be after the show because I didn't empty my pockets. I had my phone, and afterwards I was going to go out with my broadcast headset on to keep his hearing protection. And Wayne's saying, "Nah, just leave it, for crying out loud. Just put it down." He knew what was going to happen. I didn't. So
that was a clue, my friend.
Right over my head, I knew nothing. I said, okay. So I'll put up with the screaming GE 414s as they go by.
I watched that video. That looked like such a fun time.
Yeah, I did not expect it. I was not ready for it. My phone survived, believe it or not. Because it got a little damp.
I bet it did. You got soaked good.
Oh, I was soaked totally through. My shoes were squishing all the rest of the day.
I believe that.
No.
Yeah, those weren't small little buckets of water to the pier.
No. And then after the first two came over or whatever, then there was one that was like an extra about 3 seconds later. I go, what? It was great. It was quite an honor to be doused by the Blues and Thunderbirds.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. So in addition to your life of doing air show announcing, you've had some success with the I Laughed podcast. For those who aren't familiar, which you should be, I learned about flying from that. For me, what I like is it gives you the ability, I think, to teach others in aviation through storytelling of other people's emergencies and crises that they go through. So in the run of that podcast, are there any guests or stories that have really stood out for you?
Yeah, there are quite a few. One of them was actually the first episode I recorded that we actually put in then at number 8. And it was the guy from Cincinnati who has been my best friend for years, Jim Fiorito. And he was in a Piper Lance with his employer with a plane full of woodworking equipment flying up to Wisconsin. And he normally flew a Bonanza, but the Bonanza came up lame. And so he got an hour checkout in this Piper Lance, and it all looked good. And he's flying up there, and the weather starts getting bad. And he loses his first alternate, and he loses his second alternate, and he has to poke his head into, from 4,000 or so, into the clouds, and it's wintertime, and he's picking up ice, and he's got to do a missed approach, and as he does the mist, the gear comes down. The Piper Lance had an automatic gear extension switch if you got to a slow enough airspeed.
Yep.
In his 1 hour checkout, nobody told him about the override. So he was using up inordinate amounts of fuel to try to overcome that. When Jim took his training, his instrument training, he was taught to do 0-0 takeoffs and landings. And he had to do that. He did so many other things right in that he couldn't go out and go into the normal ILS for his final place he was going to go into that was still below minimums. But he had to go down and join it inside the middle marker, what was then the middle marker, because he had to stay high. but he knew he was going to be turning left sharply to make this 270 into a westerly direction landing. And so he ran his left tank dry, switched over to the right tank because that would give him gravity feed of the fuel in the right wing to keep him okay. He did that. Just before he landed, he saw a bit of a highway, almost turned into it, but he went to his training and he flew it down to the height of a man, according to what his altimeter was reading, and he chopped the power and landed. Taxied off the runway, engine quit, he shut it down. They said, no, you got to go over to the other side, and the engine would not start.
Wow.
And he's the guy that taught me to fly. Before my instructor actually taught me. He taught me attitude flying, and my instructor, Margot Brooks, a wonderful lady, she even says that Jim Fiorito taught me to fly. Still remains my best friend, and he was the first episode I recorded because I knew we had a good story there to start.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So that's one of them. There are a bunch of others, but it's they just keep getting better and better, I think. I tell you, one of the things about I Laughed that has changed over the 4 years we've done it, is that what initially were fairly straight-ahead interviews and letting them tell the story, it's more like a friendship now that I'm talking with somebody I know, and we're just doing some hanger flying. So they know me as Rob now, not this guy that's interviewing them that they've never met. And so that's been fun. So when I look at them, it's audio only, but we still have video in the podcast we do. And we end up chatting typically another half hour after it's over. So it's pretty fun. I've one British guy, Mark Brooke, was a guest this past year. And when my wife and I took a trip to the United Kingdom end of last August and into September, I got to see him and his wife there. We had breakfast.
Oh, cool.
So,
well, and I can certainly speak to that too, because when I was a guest on I Laughed, I felt the same way. I didn't feel like it was, me talking to this big superstar, which you are in my mind, but you really made me feel like we were just two guys sitting in a hangar or sitting in an FBO drinking coffee and talking. And yeah, we hit the stop button on the recording and we still talked for another half hour afterwards. So
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was fun.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Jim, when you said Badger was going to be there, I says, "Oh, this is good. I know this guy."
Yeah, we drag Badger in here.
Yeah.
So, Rob, when you're interviewing people for I Laughed, what strategies do you generally use to draw out those really important details and those lessons learned?
Oh, no strategies, because they've already told me what their story is, and in many cases, I did a pre-interview for an episode that's coming up in another week or so. At this recording, less than a week, I think, and we ended up having a pre-interview call that lasted for over a half an hour. So it's pretty easy. And the format has remained the same. When this thing started, they said, well, what would you suggest the format would be? I said, well, I'm going to do some sort of a teaser, and then we're going to have a commercial for Avemco. They're our sponsor, title and exclusive sponsor for 4 years. And then I'll talk for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes with the guest about his or her background in aviation, how it all started. Then we'll spend 15 minutes talking about what happened, and then we'll do a commercial and come back and say, well, what did you learn about flying from that? And the people who are guests now are folks who are submitting stories based on having heard the podcast and knowing my email address to reach out to me. So everybody knows what's going on. And I think that's the thing that helps break down the barriers for people telling their stories. That it's really fun, and it's really gracious of these pilots to talk about the things they screwed up.
For sure.
The last episode that's out right now, our episode 98, is a guy named Bob Rutherford, who I knew from the Cleveland show, but I didn't know his significant background with his work with NASA at the Glenn Research Center up in Cleveland. And he got into a situation where the Twin Beach he and another guy were in picked up a load of snow, and it choked the engines, lost both engines. And then as they were coming down and they got the engines going again, the guy in the right seat, a crusty old World War II P-61 Black Widow pilot, lit up a cigarette, but he had a butane lighter, and he filled it at sea level, and they were still at maybe 9,000 feet. And when he popped the valve to open and let some of that fluid get on the wick, it dropped, it sprayed all over his hands, and he flipped the thing, and his hands and his clothes caught on fire in the cockpit. I mean, that's the kind of stories we get. And Bob Rutherford, the guest, called him stupid pilot tricks. A guy who knows he knows a boatload about icing, and yet he learned the hard way that it was not just ice, but snow that choked the engines.
I love the end of that story, too, where he just refuses to go to the hospital. He was at work the next day.
yeah, that's right. They
What a guy.
put a bunch of salve on him. Yeah, I said, did you declare an emergency? He said, no, that's some crusty old dude, isn't it?
That's crazy.
Fire in the cockpit. I tagged the intro with talking about the accidents happen because the holes in the Swiss cheese line up. I said, grilled Swiss cheese on this episode of Islands.
Oh,
They
that's too good.
didn't tell me no. So
Well, Rob, you mentioned that was episode 98, so obviously you're very quickly approaching the landmark 100th episode. Is there anything you have special planned for iLaugh for the big 100?
we don't have it totally worked out yet, but I'm actually going to do the episode with Lisa DeFries, who is the executive producer, who has been with flying for a number of years and now is with the company that owns flying and a number of other brands called Fire Crown Media. And she and I are going to do the show, and we're set up for 4 days from now. And we're going to, I think we'll talk about the top 10 most downloaded episodes and then our favorites. So
interesting.
One of those will come out with the Jim Fiorito favorite that we just discussed earlier.
Yeah. So earlier you alluded to doing some audiobooks and talked a bit about that space. So you really built up this in the last couple of years, this voiceover and narration business. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, when I made a decision to figure out a way to transition out of the air show announcing business, I figured I've got to have something else to do or I will die. And sadly, when I was working in television, I was aware of a couple of the older engineers who had lived through the heyday of radio and the transition to television and just great strides in black and white to color television. And they retired and they didn't have anything to do. And within a couple of years, they were gone. And I thought, I can't do that. And as I mentioned earlier, I have this studio. I've been working with Sporties. And so I decided to put it to work. And I found a coach in the Chicago area and invested in the marketing and training and performance stuff that he had, his package. And one of the things that my buddy Bill DeWeese said was, market broadly and let the market decide what your niche will be. I thought I'd be doing commercials and promos and hit and run and do stuff. Gone. Well, what caught, and it's too long a story to share, but what caught was audiobooks. And that's going really well. And as I mentioned, I picked up this series with the Chris Broyhill series and that he wrote with Colin Pierce. And I'm continuing to talk to other authors for books that they may want to do with me, and I'm attending events that put me in touch with decision makers in the audiobook publishing business. So I'm meeting some of those people, and I spent, as I mentioned, most of today on the other side of the glass working on a book for one of those audiobook publishing companies. It's good. I still do Sporty stuff, and I'm involved in production on Sporty's podcast, Pilot's Discretion.
Okay.
And I do all the production for that for John Zimmerman. And so my studio is working. I'm happy. I stay down here in my man cave during the day. My wife has an office on the other end of the house on the second floor, but I enlist her to proof my books.
Okay.
And she's got a minor in technical writing. So I said, Jill, you want to do this? And she loves doing it. So, and doesn't drive. And she listens to my voice for a couple of hours every afternoon, and she still likes me at the end of the day. So that's good.
Oh, funny. I feel like, I know that you can't see our notes, but I feel like you could, because you answered our question about Sporties as we were typing it out amongst ourselves in our show. Like, he can't see this, right?
Well, Sporties has been my longest client ever. When they started their video department in 1987, they hired a guy from Chattanooga, Lou Sims. And Lou came up and started asking around town, started asking people in television, do you guys know of a pilot who can read? And somebody mentioned my name, and I went out and I auditioned for him, and I did an on-camera piece for him, and it stuck. I have never, in all these years since 1987, signed a contract with Sporties.
Oh, wow.
That's how reputable they are, how trustworthy they are, and they trust me. And if I have been approached to do some aviation projects for people, and irrespective of what that is, I clear it with Sporties first. Say, hey, is this all right if I do this? And they say yes or no. And one of them would have been a bit of a pilot training conflict, and they asked me not to. And I said, absolutely, I'm not going to. You got it. I'm not doing it. And I turned the folks down, because the Sporties folks, John Zimmerman, and before that, Michael Wolf, and before that, Hal Shevers, all of those folks, and Brett Kobe in the video department and his team with Phil Smith and Chris Clark are all great folks. So I'm privileged and honored to work with folks who have really worked on not only the content, but how it's presented. So it's brilliant. And they just bought pilot workshops for recurrent stuff. So that they just made that announcement just in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Primary and instrument instruction, then ongoing proficiency with the folks from pilot workshops. It's synergistic as can be. It's a very good fit.
I love that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, is there anything else that you want to cover that we haven't touched on, or that you want to bring up?
If anybody is interested in any of the audiobook work I've done, I'm still a newbie. I only have about 30 books out. But
only 30?
You can go to Amazon and books narrated by Rob Reider. There's another Rob Reider who's a financial guy. And I found out there's another Rob Reider who's a mime. He would not make a good airshow.
He would not.
or audiobook reader.
Yeah.
10 hours of silence.
I can hear his clothes moving.
For a brief moment, though, could you imagine a mime airshow announcer?
That would be really funny.
It's just mute everything, and that's how you imagine it.
Yeah.
For those listening, because this is an audio-only podcast, Rob right now is making all sorts of weird, random, comical gestures as if he's...
And there I was, upside down, 8-point roll, 4-point roll.
I love it.
But somehow, the little miming you were doing was just as I wouldn't say it's just as good as your announcing, but I mean, it spoke to me. So,
Well, I'm so glad.
oh,
my goodness. So, but the books are fun. One of the books I did was a 17-hour and 15-minute book about the design and development of the F-35 Lightning II.
oh wow.
I know more about that airplane than most of the people on the universe.
I believe it.
I'm gonna have to find that book.
F-35, the inside story of the Lightning II.
I'm going to have to find the audio book and not the paper book because apparently pilots can't read. So.
Well, this
Only Rob
no,
Reider
no,
can
no.
read.
This was not. This was not pilot. Yo, that's funny. That's very.
Well, a callback for you.
Okay, Badger.
You got you good.
Okay.
You guys think it's about that time?
I think it's about that time.
Absolutely.
Regardless of if you've been asked before, Rob, what is your aviation unpopular opinion or hot take?
Hot take, unpopular opinion about aviation?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because I am so enamored by the ability to have the freedom to fly, it's difficult for me to say anything bad about it. I'm sure there are things that I'll think of before I go to bed tonight, but right now I'm thinking, nah, it's all wonderful. I just don't want people to do dumb stuff. And unfortunately, I do a podcast that's filled with people some of whom have done dumb stuff. But if we learn from the dumb stuff,
Yes.
then we're all better off.
Exactly.
So
That is so true.
keep listening, folks. The stories will never end.
Pilots do dumb stuff, but we can learn from it.
Yeah.
I like that.
A wise man learns from
Good.
experience. A wiser man learns from the experience of others. And
Amen.
And I don't know whether this is an original tagline, but I started using it. I laughed. Is hangar flying that you can take with you anywhere, anytime.
I like it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, Rob, we can't thank you enough for coming back on the Flying Midwest podcast with us. It's been an absolute treat for all of us, and we really enjoyed having you here, and we appreciate your time. So, Rob, thanks for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast.
Badger, Maddie, Jim, thank you all very much. Great to be with you guys tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for coming on the Flying Midwest podcast once again. Congratulations on the completion of an incredible career of announcing, but look forward to still hearing your voice in the aviation space and in books in the future. So good for you. Happy for you.
Yeah, definitely. And what a genuine guy.
Right?
As we said at the opening, the personality you get when he's in front of the camera is the exact same personality you get when you're just hanging around and shooting the breeze. Just absolute genuine and, a consummate professional and just an awesome guy to talk with. And
Absolutely.
we talked about the conversations on the podcast being like a couple guys just hanging around the hangar, and I have no doubt that in person it would be the same way. So, Rob, you're more than welcome to come hang out at my hangar anytime.
So keen viewers, especially on YouTube, may have noticed that we did this as a live stream and totally didn't mean to. So we've pushed it to private for now. So no, you can't harvest it for goofy little clips. But if you want to check out the video and Rob's amazing mime work, we will have that available for our Patreons or for our patrons over on Patreon. So take a look for that. If you are wanting to see this or just support our work, you can through Patreon. We have several different tiers depending on what you're willing to contribute to us. And we are thankful no matter what you choose. We just love that you're here and hopefully you're subscribed and that you give a listen every couple of weeks when we come on.
Absolutely.
In our last episode, we did a solo show where we talked about the Flying Winter Blues. And we'd like to hear from all of you about what you thought about that, and more importantly, what you think our next solo episode should cover. The best way to reach out to us with topic ideas is either through the Discord or email us directly. at flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know a topic you'd like to hear us talk about, or sometimes just try to talk about and fail miserably, like what the different Cherokees are called. And we will be sure to include that for a future episode.
I think I want to also add here that if you have like just a general topic that you want to cover, not even just a solo topic, or if you want to be a guest on a future episode, you can reach out to us in the same ways as previously mentioned. Hey, also, it would be super helpful, all of our faithful listeners, if you haven't done so already. I know we say this every episode, but if you could leave us a rating, 5 stars only, a review, and make sure that you subscribe, that certainly helps us in passing on the podcast. Or if you think this podcast will be entertaining for others to listen to, we certainly appreciate any shares that you wish to contribute to the cause, whether that means just sending them a link, stealing their phone and subscribing for them. Whatever you got to do to help spread the word about the Flying Midwest podcast, we certainly appreciate it.
So thank you, as always, for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast. And until next time.
Oh, that was really loud.
So, I don't care how loud I am.
Those were so loud this time. Mike, did you?
Flight 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35. Good day.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.
Are we live streaming this? Hold on a second.
Are we?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no!
It's not a big deal if we were.
If we
Nobody
are,
was
it's
here,
only like
right?
20 seconds.
No, I meant in general, like that whole last episode.
No, we couldn't be.
No.
Wait. Streamed 4 minutes ago.
God bless America. Why?
Can you delete
Yep,
it?
We were.
Everything,
Yep, go delete it real quick.
my whole computer just froze.
No.
Like, I can hear you guys, but
God.
Chrome just went to hell.
Of course.
Oh no, it says 16 views.
Cool. Thanks for watching, everyone.
And it still has the title, The Winter Flying Blues.
Oh, for crying out loud. We are the best.
When you're recording now, so this could all be a blooper.
Yeah. Sure am.
It's just really windy right now. It feels like 1 degree. I'm running out. I'm running out of degrees.
You're so loud tonight, Maddie.
I'm really close to the camera, sorry. Or whatever this is.
You're so loud. You got a hangover or
Stop.
something?
Turn me down then. Jeez.
Oh, if only we could.
Nobody calls it a certificate to learn. It's a license to learn.
That's because of alliteration, obviously.
All right, I'm going to start a podcast.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Flying Midwest Cod. Not fish. Gosh,
So I have something too.
bring it on.
I forgot. Okay.
Are you kidding me?
What?
I have something too. Never mind, I forgot. Like a goldfish.
We are audio only, Rob. It's all right.
Okay. Oh, it is? Oh, we are all audio only? Okay, that's good. All right. We're done here. I don't care.
We're done here. Great answer.
Oh, it's only audio? I'm not doing this thing.
Right.
I'm out of here.
Maddie, I think you're up.
I know. I've been waiting for you to stop talking. No, I'm just kidding. So thank you, as always, for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast. We'll see ya.
What was that?
Talks about college stuff. I really should read these ad more often. They're doing more with education. Just airport student launch. I know I'm super boring right now. I'm one of those pilots that doesn't know how to read, so I need Rob Reider to read this to me.